You have to leave a woman.
Members of the House of Commons, the Lords who are authorised by virtue of Her Majesty's Commission to declare the opening of Parliament desire the presence of this Honourable House in the House of Peers to hear the Commission read.
Order, order. Under the provisions of Standing Order number 1A, I am now required to ascertain whether John Bercow is willing to be chosen as Speaker. I call Mr. John Bercow.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. What a pleasure it is to welcome you back to this place. As you add the accolade of Father of the House to the many achievements of your long and distinguished career. Next Sunday, you will mark 47 years continuous service to your constituency of Rushcliffe, to this chamber, and to our country as a whole. You are held in great affection and esteem on both sides of the House, and I am sure that I speak for all colleagues in wishing you well in your new role. If the House so permits, I shall be honoured to serve as Speaker in this Parliament, which, thankfully, across the parties, is more richly diverse and representative of modern Britain than any of its predecessors. I will strive to ensure that all parts of the House are heard fully and fairly, and, as always, I will champion the right of backbenchers to question, to probe, to scrutinise and to hold to account the government of the day. Finally, Mr. Clerk, I referred admiringly to your 47-year tenure. It may come as a relief to colleagues to know that I have no pretensions to seek to serve for anything like so long either as a parliamentarian or indeed in the chair as Speaker. That said, we appear to be destined for testing times. I offer myself to the House as a tested Speaker.
May I thank you, Mr. Bercow, for those kind and flattering remarks, particularly referring, as you repeatedly did, to my longevity, which is about the only non-controversial fact you can assert about my parliamentary career. I call upon Mrs. Cheryl Gillan to move the motion.
I beg to move that the Right Honourable John Simon Bercow do take the chair of the House as Speaker. And can I start by adding my belated congratulations to the Father of House, the Right Honourable Member for Rushcliffe. He took over earlier this year when we sadly lost another member of the 1970 intake, the very well-respected Sir Gerald Coughlin, of whom the leader of the opposition said he loved life and politics. And I can honestly say that that can be said of you too. And as Mr. Bercow said, having served in all of the departments of state, virtually, and all the great offices throughout your long and distinguished career, it's a tribute to your record of public service and your resilience that you preside over the opening proceedings of our Parliament today and the election of a new Speaker. Whilst welcoming all my colleagues returning to the House, who are naturally familiar with the Speaker's role, we are all pleased to welcome new members across all sides of the House. However, they may not realise that the Speaker's office under this name goes back only a mere 640 years. The Speaker was then the agent of the King and was afforded little protection. If the agent of the King offered bad news, he suffered the monarch's wrath, and no less than 7 speakers were beheaded between 1394 and 1535. Let that be a warning to you. Fortunately, the job description has changed since then, and our modern Speaker protects us and our rights as backbenchers without fear of losing his head. Except, I have to say, when members misbehave in this chamber. Now, compared to the father of the House, and yes, with 47 years' experience, I'm just a youngster in this place. But over the 25 years I've served in Parliament, I've seen many changes. The Whigs have gone, except today one, for a state occasion. The hours have changed. Sorry, the Whigs have gone except 1 or 2. The hours have changed, the committees have increased, the technology has advanced, the media never sleeps, and the challenges of the job of the Speaker continue to multiply. And having been our Speaker since the 22nd of June 2009, I have seen the Right Honourable Member for Buckingham rise to those challenges and grow in this job. He has shown himself to be utterly impartial and fearless in defending the House of Commons from all comers, whether it be over mighty ministers or a raucous media. He is a determined champion of opening up our democracy, bringing in reforms that have made Parliament accessible to over 100,000 schoolchildren each year. He is an effective Speaker who has used his office to reach out to people across our country. He is an energetic ambassador for Parliament throughout the United Kingdom and around the world, but he is also a devoted and hard-working champion for his constituents in Buckinghamshire. These are not my words, but the endorsements from the Right Honourable Members for Sutton Coldfield, Normanton, Pontefract and Castleford, the Leader of the Opposition and the Prime Minister. But my favourite endorsement is from the Right Honourable Member for Camberwell and Peckham, standing by the chair, who said on his reappointment in 2015 that he may be small in stature, but make no mistake, in the office of Speaker, he is a giant. Perhaps it's true, good things do come in small packages. For my own part, in proposing him for Speaker, I have always found him to be scrupulously fair, never allowing his views to compromise his impartiality. Although I think on all sides of the House we can agree he is no stranger to controversy. I think he annoys members of all the front benches from time to time, which is probably a testament to his even-handedness. He fosters a sense of community amongst those who work in the precincts and applies himself with vigour to all the many and varied tasks that fall to the role. But he also has qualities which many of us wonder at. His ability to recall obscure information on members. I warn you members of this. His loquaciousness and command of the English language. And in particular, please note, Father of the House, his ability to remain in the chair for inordinate lengths of time. The record being an 11-hour, 24-minute uninterrupted stint during the Syria debate, causing much admiring comment about the strength of his bladder. panel-like qualities aside, his performance in the chamber is also matched by his record outside. He has hosted over 1,000 events for charities in Speaker's House and presides over the administration of this place with great patience and good humour, to which I can attest. This Parliament, like all that have gone before, will have its own character and present its own challenges. Over the next few years, our country will go through the great changes that people's democratic votes have presented to us in this House. And at the same time, we face the very real threats to that freedom and democracy and our precious way of life, which has been thrown so starkly into focus with the cyber attack on our NHS, the 2 unspeakable acts of violence during the election campaign, the death of PC Keith Palmer, and of course, the loss of our colleague, Joe Cox, who was taken from us all a year ago this week. As Speaker, he has always acted swiftly to join others with words and acts of reassurance, and I was proud to see him in Manchester standing shoulder to shoulder with the community that had come under such lethal attack. In times like this, and in all our deliberations in this House, we need the experience, maturity and commitment to our Parliament, which I believe is shown by the Right Honourable Member for Buckingham. His devotion to this House and this country cannot be disputed. He has served this House and us as members with strength and fortitude, and I have great pleasure in commending him to the House to serve as our next Speaker.
The question is that Mr. John Bercow do take the chair of this House as Speaker. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Colleagues, before I take the chair as Speaker-elect, I wish first to thank the House for the honour that it has again bestowed upon me. I'm aware that it is the greatest honour it can give to any of its members. I pray that I shall justify its continuing confidence, and I propose to do all within my power to preserve and to cherish its best traditions. I want, if I may, just to say 2 other things. First, and yes, it's a repetition, but I think it's a justified repetition. Isn't it marvellous to see the Right Honourable and learned gentleman, the member for Rushcliffe, as Father of the House and back here in rude health? Yeah. And secondly, in welcoming the presence of all colleagues today and congratulating all those in all parties who have been re-elected, I hope experienced members will understand if I pay particular tribute to the, I believe, 87 members newly elected for the first time. Whatever else you have done or will do in the course of your careers, there will be no greater honour than that which you have just attained as an elected Member of Parliament. And I'm sure each and every one of you will be very conscious of your responsibility to your constituents. rest assured the Speaker will look out for you and be very keen, sooner rather than later, and more frequently rather than less frequently, to hear from you.
Mr. Speaker-elect. Mr. Speaker-elect. Oh.
That's not the Prime Minister's fault. I gave her the nod. The Prime Minister.
I was going to say, Mr. Speaker-elect, to all those who are new members, you see, you can be in this House for 20 years and still not always know what the protocol is going to be, but there we are. Mr. Speaker-elect, on behalf of the whole House, may I congratulate you on your re-election. At least someone got a landslide. And may I also congratulate you on becoming the first Speaker since the Second World War to be re-elected 3 times. In your tenure so far, you have been a great champion of backbenchers, ensuring that every member of this House has the opportunity to speak and to be heard in representing the people they serve. This is such an important part of the way our democracy is upheld in this House, and I know you will continue in this vital role in the future, just as you have in the past. Let me also thank my right honourable friend, the member for Rushcliffe, for assuming the chair for this election, and let me welcome his return as the father of the House. He has, as you and others have said, Mr. Speaker-elect, had a long and distinguished career in his service to his constituents and to this country. And if I may say to him, it is very good to see him back here where he belongs. Yeah. But it may not surprise him that I intend to be difficult today and break with tradition by not only welcoming him as the father of the House, but also welcoming the returning mother of the House. Yeah. The Right Honourable Member for Camberwell and Peckham has been a great advocate for increasing the number of women in Parliament. Yeah. And I'm sure she will join me in celebrating the fact that there are now more women MPs than ever before. Yeah. And as we welcome new members on all sides of the House, we should also celebrate the fact that we now have a record number of MPs from black and minority ethnic backgrounds, including the first ever female Sikh MP, the Honourable Member for Birmingham Edgbaston. Yeah. We also have more disabled MPs and more LGBT MPs, and I hope that together we will continue to build on the progress that we have made in previous parliaments to fight against discrimination in all its forms and to make our politics more representative of all the people we serve. Yeah. For while there is further to go, if there is one outcome from this election we can all welcome, it is surely this, that today we have the most diverse and most representative Parliament in our history. Yeah. Mr. Speaker-elect, I know that members across the House will also want to pay tribute to their predecessors. We will all miss former members not returned to this House, but we welcome our new colleagues. Being a member of this House is a great privilege that requires dedication and often personal sacrifice, and everyone in this chamber does it because they want to serve the public. Whatever the result, general elections are above all an exercise in democracy and our values, the very democracy and values that the recent terror attacks sought to undermine. Mr. Speaker-elect, this is the first opportunity that Parliament has had to reflect on the despicable terrorist attacks in Manchester and at London Bridge. And I'm sure members on all sides will want to join me in sending our deepest condolences to the families and loved ones of all those who lost their lives in the attacks. And I know the House will also want to express admiration for the extraordinary work of all our police and emergency services, whose courage and speed of response saved many lives. As we begin this new Parliament, it is clear that our country faces some of the greatest challenges of our time. The challenge of keeping our nation safe, including by defeating the perverted ideology of Islamist extremism. the challenge of securing the best possible Brexit deal and delivering the will of the British people in taking the United Kingdom out of the European Union, and the challenge of spreading opportunity and prosperity to every part of our United Kingdom, so that no one and no community is left behind. In meeting these challenges, what we have seen from the election is that there are parts of our country that remain divided between young and old, rich and poor, those for whom the future offers a sense of opportunity, and those for whom it brings worry and concern. Some people blame politics for these divisions, or say there is too much politics. But politics can be an incredible force for good. Conducted in the right way, it can be how we resolve our differences, how we deal with injustices, and how we take, not shirk, the big decisions. It's not always glamorous or exciting, but at its best, the duty we share as politicians to serve others in confronting these challenges is a truly noble calling for us all. And the test for all of us is whether we choose to reflect divisions or help the country overcome them. So let us choose in this Parliament to conduct ourselves in a manner fitting to this moment, to debate, to disagree, but in doing so we recognise we all want to see a Britain that is stronger, fairer and safe and secure for our children and grandchildren. And that our shared values, interests and ambitions can and must bring us together. As we face difficult challenges ahead, let us come together in a spirit of national unity to keep our country safe and build a stronger, fairer and more prosperous future for everyone in every part of our United Kingdom.
Thank you. I call the Leader of the Opposition. Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, and I follow the Prime Minister in the remarks she made about the importance of the work we all have to do in this Parliament, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But firstly, I want to congratulate the Honourable Member for Rushcliffe on becoming Father of the House. He seemed to me to be a very well-established MP when I entered the House 34 years ago. And I've never quite forgotten the image of the member for Rushcliffe in the tea room, wearing hush puppies, eating bacon sandwiches, drinking super-strength lager and carrying a cigar whilst taking a break from a debate on healthy living. And he's had a very long and distinguished career in this House, and punctuated this year by his speech in the Brexit debate, during which he lamented that his party opposite had become mildly anti-immigrant. How new a development that might be is open to debate, but I'm sorry to note that it's also, to put it generously, at best mildly anti-worker, anti-disabled people, anti-pensioner and anti-young person as well. I'm sorry to be so divisive here today. It's all right, it's all right. Mr. Speaker, it is customary on these occasions to congratulate the returning Prime Minister, and I absolutely do so. And I congratulate her on returning, and I'm sure she will agree with me that democracy is a wondrous thing and can throw up some very unexpected results. And I'm sure we all look forward to welcoming the Queen's speech just as soon as the coalition of chaos has been negotiated. And, Mr. Speaker, I just let the House know and the rest of the nation know that if that's not possible, the Labour Party stands ready to offer strong and stable leadership in the national interest. I want to warmly welcome, Mr. Speaker, all new members to this House. There is, as you have said and others have said, no greater honour than being elected here. And it is an amazing day when you first come and take your seat here. The honour of representing your constituents and taking decisions that will help people's lives. That's why we're elected here, to represent those that have put us here to try and make their lives better. And you quite rightly pointed out, as did the Prime Minister, we now have over 200 women MPs, more than ever before in the history of this Parliament, and I think that is an excellent thing, and I join the Prime Minister in congratulating my friend, the member for Camberwell and Peckham, and all that she's done to promote women in Parliament and women's careers in general. Mr. Speaker, this weekend marked the anniversary of the election of 4 black MPs to the House of Commons 30 years ago, the first black MPs for more than 60 years in the British Parliament. And in particular, I welcome my right honourable friends, the members for Hackney North and Stoke Newington, and for Leicester East. Those were 2 of the 4 who were elected in 1987, who are now members of the most diverse House of Commons ever. They paved the way, and I have to say, they've put up with an awful lot by being pioneers in taking their seats in 1987. It is vital for our democracy that all voices are heard and represented. Mr. Speaker, there can be no better speaker than you in the 30 years that I've been here, because you've always ensured that backbench voices are heard, and the way that you've presided over our chamber at all times, the good, the bad, and the tragic and the difficult, particularly the way in which you presided over this chamber after the horrors of what happened on Westminster Bridge, when those horrors came almost to the door of Parliament. And whilst Parliament has obviously not been in session for the past few weeks, we also commemorate the awfulness of what happened in Manchester, as well as what happened on London Bridge. We have to stand together as communities, strong, united against those that would seek to divide and destroy the democracy that we have in our society. And I congratulate you on the way in which you've conducted yourself and the inclusive debates that you've made sure backbenchers are fully involved with over the years that you've been Speaker. We have 2 things in common, at least 2 things in common, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, which is very divisive, our love for Arsenal Football Club. I realise that would bring that sort of comment, but I can cope, it's all right. And secondly, we both came to this place having been local councillors, and I think serving communities on local authorities is very important, and I'm delighted at the number of former councillors or serving councillors who were elected to this House on Thursday night, because they also bring a very special expertise and knowledge to this House. We have to speak up for our constituents, and that is why we're here, and I know, Mr. Speaker, you will make sure those voices are heard. I want to thank you for your role as Speaker in facilitating exhibitions in this House. I took part in one on commemorating the end of the slave trade, and the many receptions you've held for charities in the Speaker's House, but also the way in which you've travelled around the country, reaching out and spreading the whole idea of democracy in schools and colleges, not necessarily famous, not necessarily well known, but you've reached out to people in a way that had never been done before, and I think we should all be very grateful to you for that. You're not going to be troubled by party politics anymore because you're in the chair, but it is in the great tradition of democracy, and you stand in that tradition of a Speaker standing up for democracy. In your House, there is a commemoration to Speaker Lenthal and many other speakers there. Your job and his job was to protect democracy and rise above party debate. I just hope now we can have that real debate in the future, whenever those benches opposite might be in a position to take part in those debates. Mr. Speaker, we look forward to this Parliament, however short it might be, that we can be the voice for change in our society, because more people, particularly young people, than ever before took part in this recent general election. They took part because they wanted to see things done differently in our society. They wanted our Parliament to represent them and deliver change for them. And I am looking forward to this Parliament, like no other Parliament ever before, to challenge and hopefully bring about that change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Stuart Hosey.
With the words of the Prime Minister in her condolences to those who lost their lives in Manchester and London, and also to pay tribute to the emergency services. It's right that we do that, as our democratic process was affected twice in a short campaign. Can I also say that we will miss many of those who have lost their seats from all parts of the House. While we welcome all of the new members from all of the parties, there are some big beasts who have gone, and I suspect we will miss them all sooner rather than later. May I also agree with the Prime Minister on one other thing she said, that politics are not divisive. And I think that's important. Whether we take a different view on the Constitution, on Brexit, on social policy, on tax and spend, these are simply the different opinions of political opponents, not enemies. And if we can reflect a little more respect across all the parties, that would do this House and politics a great deal of good. Mr. Speaker, may I congratulate you. We in the SNP have always seen you as a champion, ensuring that all of the voices across and indeed within the parties are properly heard. Indeed, I can also say, having sat and worked with you on the House of Commons Commission, you've also shown yourself to be incredibly diligent with an attention to detail in the way this building and House and Commons is run out with the Chamber, and I'm sure those who join you on that Commission in this Parliament will find exactly the same thing. So in congratulating you, and we do, may I make one final comment. The Leader of the Opposition has referred to a coalition which is as yet undefined and a programme for government which appears to be as yet unwritten. And given there is no absolute majority in this House, we're in for interesting times. So with my congratulations, Mr. Speaker, may I wish you all the very best of luck.
Thank you. Mr. Tim Farron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many congratulations to you, and may I associate myself with the remarks that have been made by the speakers so far, especially in the light of the outrages that took place both in Manchester and in London during the general election campaign. They were outrages that were meant to divide us, and our response is to be united, to show love and respect, immense gratitude to those who came to our aid, those who came to help those who were stricken, those who keep us safe. And as we were attacked in this place a few months earlier and saw the death of Keith Palmer, we are reminded in the most utterly visceral way how safe our police and our security services keep us, and to whom we are immensely grateful. May I also associate myself with the remarks made, the generous remarks, and correctly so, about the right honourable members for Camberwell and Peckham, and indeed for Rushcliffe, and also with the remarks made earlier by the right honourable member for Chesham and Amersham. She did make one mistake. She said that we've got rid of nearly all the Whigs. Can I say there's 12 of us now? And that is a 50% increase. Thank you very much. So, yeah, come on. I'm here all week. Mr. Speaker, congratulations. Actually, if you're quiet, about 90 seconds, but there you go. Mr. Speaker, congratulations on your re-election, which is, of course, utterly well-deserved. You have the privilege of serving and indeed presiding over one of the most interesting parliaments in recent years. I think you're the first speaker, certainly in any modern times, to preside over not just one, but now two balanced parliaments. And between you and me, we really have to do something about the chaos and the absolute instability caused by the first-past-the-post electoral system. We have every right to expect and every confidence that you will continue with characteristic good grace and humour to preside over this place. You are known for your fairness and willingness to ensure that voices right across this place, from every corner of the United Kingdom and from every party, are heard. I am sure that my colleagues returned here in greater numbers will look forward to speaking up very clearly for their constituents, particularly as we embark on these critical Brexit negotiations. After this recent divisive period, it will be our intention to seek unity in the national interest and common purpose across this House, and where we disagree with other parties, to seek to disagree well and with grace. We shall also speak out in favour of restored investment in schools, health and social care and our police force, believing that a parliament that does not invest in those public services is no servant of its people. Once again, many congratulations from me and all of my colleagues.
Thank you. Mr. Nigel Dodds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I begin by congratulating you, sir, on your re-election, and I wish you very, very well indeed for the post that you now reoccupy. You have always been very, very assiduous in ensuring that those with smaller parties, the regional parties, and those with little influence in this House have had their voice heard. Can I also say that I hope that in future, while some things may have changed, it is good that you remain in place and that some things haven't changed. We look forward to this Parliament, and I want to commiserate with all those members on all sides of the House who have failed to be re-elected or who have left us, and congratulate all members of all parties who have joined us. I want to particularly pay tribute to those members from Northern Ireland, from other parties who have not been re-elected. I want to thank them for their service, and we bear a heavy responsibility now in this House, along with the independent member as the only representatives from Northern Ireland, and we intend to carry out that responsibility very, very carefully indeed. We hope, of course, for the restoration as soon as possible of our locally devolved Assembly and Executive in Northern Ireland, where everybody can play a part in the government of Northern Ireland. So, Mr. Speaker-elect, we have interesting times ahead. I look forward to playing a full role in the proceedings of this Parliament over the course of the next 5 years, and I wish you well in your office during that time. Thank you.
Mr. Howell Williams.
May I begin by associating myself and my party with the Prime Minister's remarks and the remarks of others about the outrages in Manchester and in London. These sorts of horrible acts have absolutely no place in our democracy, and we all join together to condemn them. You will forgive me, Mr. Speaker, if I begin by just welcoming my new honourable friend for Ceredigion. That the good people of Ceredigion will be represented by a Plaid Cymru member once again, and we look forward to his contributions. On behalf of my friends, I would of course like to congratulate both you, Mr. Speaker, and the Father of the House. I'm sure honourable and right honourable members on both sides of the House look forward to the right honourable member for Rushton's incisive, extremely knowledgeable and supremely confident interventions during what is likely to be one of the most lively and most important parliaments of recent years. Not least, of course, because the matter mainly before us in this place, the matter of the UK's place in Europe, has been one of his central political concerns for so long. We look forward to his contributions. I also congratulate you, of course, Mr. Speaker, and hope that you will continue in your positive attitude towards the workings of this place, to the modernisation of that working, to the rights of backbenchers, and lastly, to the very fair treatment you've always provided for the smaller parties. Thank you.
Caroline Lucas.
Can I associate myself and my party with the comments made by the Prime Minister and others about those atrocities in Manchester and London Bridge, and our hearts go out to all those who are affected by them. I'm delighted to congratulate you, Mr. Speaker-elect, on your well-deserved re-election. When you were last re-elected in May 2015, you said you would like to be immortalised on your tombstone as the backbenchers champion. And as the member of this House with perhaps the least chance of ever becoming a frontbencher, I think I can say that you have that ambition safely in the bag. But can I also say that you are a champion of the smaller parties in this House, and we are very grateful for that, as well as a pioneer when it comes to the urgent issue of parliamentary reform, and that as well is much appreciated. I'd like to congratulate the Right Honourable Member for Rushcliffe on becoming Father of the House, to echo the very well-said words about the Right Honourable Member for Camberwell and Peckham on her role when it comes to being the mother of the House, and in particular her role in getting more women elected. And in doing so, I'd like to echo the comments of others about the pleasure we have in seeing now a record number of women being represented in this place, at the same time as noting that 32% still remain some way off 50%. Slow progress is better than no progress, but we still think there's some way to go. And who knows, perhaps we will not have to wait a full 5 years before having a chance to improve on that 32% of this House being women, and our still shameful rating of being the 38th in the world when it comes to women in this place. I look forward to improvements in diversity right across this House.
Thank you. We come now to the adjournment. The whip to move.
Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn until tomorrow at 2:40 p.m.
The question is that this House do now adjourn until tomorrow at 2:40 p.m. As many as are that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order.